My husband screamed that he wished he had never married me. I answered with one word: granted. The following morning, my attorney filed for an annulment based on fraud. His soulmate disappeared once she realized he would be leaving the marriage without the house, the wedding gifts, or the $200,000 his parents had contributed. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 32 years old, and for 10 months I believed I was married to a man named Adrian Vale. Our wedding had been extravagant enough to appear in a local society magazine. There were white roses suspended over the ballroom, a 7-piece band, custom menus, and nearly 200 guests watching. Adrian promised that he would choose me every day for the rest of his life. His father, Victor, cried during the vows. At the time, I thought it meant he was happy for us. Later, I realized Victor had been watching the ceremony like a businessman watching a contract being signed. The Vale family called themselves traditional. What they really valued was appearance. Their home was always immaculate, their holiday cards were professionally photographed, and every family disagreement disappeared the moment outsiders entered the room. Before the wedding, Victor and his wife, Margaret, gave us $200,000 toward the down payment on our marital home. Their attorneys documented it as a marriage gift transferred to me specifically for the purchase. The house was placed in my name. So was the mortgage. That had not been some secret strategy on my part. I was a senior logistics analyst for a major import-export company. My income was stable, my credit was excellent, and Adrian had recently left his position at a marketing agency to explore more meaningful opportunities. Putting the loan in my name gave us the best rate. At least, that was the explanation everyone accepted. I paid the mortgage, insurance, utilities, Adrian's leased car, his club fees, and nearly every expense we accumulated after the honeymoon. Adrian kept saying he would start working again when he found something worthy of him. I don't want to jump into another meaningless job just because it pays well, he told me one morning. I had been awake since 5, reviewing delayed shipping reports from Singapore while he stood in our kitchen wearing a robe that cost more than my first monthly rent. I'm not asking you to take something meaningless, I said. I'm asking what your plan is. My plan is to decompress. You've been decompressing for 4 months. He smiled as though I had made a harmless joke, kissed my forehead, and walked upstairs with his coffee. I let it go, and over time that became the pattern of our marriage. I let things go because I believed patience was part of loving someone. When Adrian ordered new clothes, I told myself he needed confidence for job interviews. When he spent entire afternoons at wellness clubs, I reminded myself that the wedding had overwhelmed him. When his phone began lighting up at midnight, he said he was reconnecting with old friends. I wanted to believe him until 2 months before our argument, when I found a second SIM card hidden beneath the velvet insert in his watch box. I had not been searching through his possessions. I was looking for the warranty card for the watch I had bought him as a wedding gift. The velvet lining shifted when I lifted the box and the tiny SIM card slid onto the dresser. I stood there staring at it for nearly a minute before I heard Adrian laughing downstairs. I slipped the SIM card back exactly where I'd found it, then contacted a private investigator that afternoon. His name was Daniel Mercer. He was in his late 40s, spoke in short sentences, and never made promises he could not prove. Do you want confirmation of an affair? He asked during our first meeting, or do you want to know everything? I looked through the cafe window at people crossing the street beneath the rain. Everything. For 6 weeks, Daniel quietly documented Adrian's life. Every few days he sent photographs, receipts, timestamps, and concise reports showing the same pattern. Adrian was seeing his former girlfriend, Serena Blake. They met for lunches, spent evenings at her apartment, and twice disappeared together into a boutique hotel outside the city. I never confronted him. I needed to know whether I was looking at a recent affair or a lie that had existed before our wedding. So while Daniel kept investigating, I kept pretending everything was normal. Every evening I asked Adrian about his day, and every evening he kissed me as though nothing had changed. Everything unraveled the following Thursday. While reviewing my credit card statement, I found a $2,500 charge from Willow Creek Resort. The description listed spa services and a private room. Willow Creek wasn't an ordinary spa. It was a secluded luxury resort built for couples who valued privacy. Adrian came downstairs smiling at something on his phone just as I was staring at the statement. What's the Willow Creek charge? I asked. He froze for the briefest moment before locking his screen. What charge? The $2,500 resort charge. His expression hardened. Were you checking my spending? I was reviewing a bill I have to pay. Instead of answering, he tossed his phone onto the counter. I can't believe you're monitoring every dollar I spend. I asked about one charge. You always turn everything into a financial audit. It's a large expense at a resort you've never mentioned. I think that's a reasonable question. It was self-care. Did your self-care require a private room? The mask slipped, and instead of answering my question, he attacked. I don't owe you an explanation for every hour of my life. You use my credit card. Our credit card. No, it's my account. You're an authorized user. He laughed without any humor. There it is. The real Evelyn. Your house, your money, your cards. You don't want a husband. You want an employee who files expense reports. That's not what I said. You don't have to. You make me feel it every day. Looking at him, I realized I wasn't seeing guilt or embarrassment anymore. I was looking at resentment from a man who hated depending on the person financing the life he wanted to escape. I've supported you for 10 months, I said calmly. I've never questioned your spending until now. I'm asking about one charge. Oh my God, listen to yourself. His voice rose. You're not a wife. You're a walking spreadsheet. Something inside me went completely still. He stepped closer, mistaking my silence for weakness. Do you know what it's like living with you? Every bill tracked, every decision planned, every risk calculated. You told me my stability made you feel safe. That was before I realized what living with you would actually be like. And what's it like? Suffocating. The word lingered between us as he turned away, running both hands through his hair. I'm 28 and I already feel 60. I'm trapped in this house, this routine, this life I never wanted. At that exact moment, his phone lit up on the counter. Only a single letter appeared in the preview. Sess. He grabbed the phone before I could read anything else. Then he looked me straight in the eye and shouted the sentence that ended our marriage. I wish I'd never married you. Instead of breaking down the way I'd imagined countless times, I felt strangely calm. I already knew he'd betrayed me, and somewhere beneath his anger I suspected he knew I knew. I met his eyes. Granted. His expression faltered. What? You wish you'd never married me, I said evenly. I'm granting your wish. Evelyn, stop. I turned toward my office, but he followed close behind. What does that even mean? It means this marriage is over. Because of one argument? No, because this argument confirmed everything I already knew. He stopped when I reached the office door. For the first time that evening, fear replaced his anger. Evelyn, you should call your father. Why? Because by tomorrow morning, your family is going to need a lawyer. I locked the door before he could stop me. Almost immediately, he began pounding on it. Open the door. Ignoring him, I pulled the evidence folder from my desk. Inside were photographs, hotel receipts, travel records, and copies of messages Serena had backed up to a shared account Adrian had once connected to our home computer. Every record carefully documented by Daniel. One message immediately stood out. It had been sent a month before our wedding. Adrian, just get through the ceremony. Once everything settles, she'll never see it coming. Serena, how long do I have to wait? Adrian, 6 months, maybe a year. Then I'll tell her I'm unhappy. The house already has your studio written all over it. Another message removed any remaining doubt. Evelyn thinks stability is love. Let her. She'll fund the life we actually want. It wasn't just an affair. He had entered the marriage planning to use it. I called my attorney. Rebecca Shaw. It's Evelyn. Behind the door, Adrian was still shouting for me to let him in. What happened? Rebecca asked. He confirmed it. Are you certain? Yes. I repeated exactly what he'd said. I wish I'd never married you. And your response? Granted. Rebecca was quiet for only a moment. I'll file the annulment petition first thing tomorrow. There was no discussion about emotions or second chances. She immediately moved to practical questions. Are you safe? Yes. Does he have access to your banking or work accounts? He has an authorized credit card, but no passwords. Cancel the card, change every password, photograph the condition of the house, gather your identification and evidence, then leave for the night. Don't tell him where you're going. I hesitated. The house is in my name. Leaving temporarily doesn't affect ownership, she replied. Staying tonight isn't worth the risk. Outside, Adrian had finally stopped pounding, but the silence unsettled me even more. And can he be served tomorrow? Yes. Let him wonder what you know. Don't discuss the evidence. As I ended the call, I remembered Victor proudly explaining months earlier that his $200,000 gift would secure Adrian's future. Back then, I'd assumed Victor meant our future. Now I knew he'd only meant Adrian's. After ending the call, I immediately cancelled Adrian's authorized credit card, changed every password connected to my banking, email, cloud storage, phone account, and home security system. Then downloaded copies of every important record before opening the office door. Adrian was sitting on the floor outside. The anger was gone, replaced by exhaustion. Can we talk now? I need to pack. He followed me upstairs as I pulled a suitcase from the closet. Evelyn, this has gone too far. I said something stupid. You said you felt trapped. I was angry. You said you never wanted this life. I didn't mean our marriage. You said you wished you'd never married me. He rubbed his face. People say cruel things during fights. Sometimes they say the truth. I packed only my clothes, medication, work essentials, and personal belongings while he watched in silence. What did you mean about calling my father? He should start looking for a family lawyer. His expression tightened. You're filing for divorce. No. Then what? I zipped the suitcase. An annulment. He stared at me. That doesn't make any sense. It will when you read the petition. You can't erase 10 months of marriage because we argued. I'm not ending it because of tonight. Then why? For a moment, I almost said Serena's name. I wanted to watch him realize every secret had already been exposed. Instead, I remembered Rebecca's advice. Uncertainty would make him careless. You'll find out tomorrow. He blocked the doorway. You're scaring me. The fear sounded rehearsed. He wasn't worried about me. He was already preparing the story he'd tell everyone else. Move. Not until you explain. Our eyes locked. Then his phone vibrated. He instinctively reached for it. Serena, even now. Without another word, he stepped aside. Before leaving, I photographed every room, including the furniture, artwork, electronics, and unopened wedding gifts. What are you doing? He demanded. Documenting the house. You think I'm going to steal from you? I think evidence is more reliable than memory. His contempt returned instantly. There you are. Evelyn the analyst, turning the end of a marriage into an inventory. I slipped my phone into my pocket. The end of this marriage started before the wedding. He froze, and it was the closest I came to telling him I already knew everything. Outside, he followed me onto the porch. Where are you going? Somewhere you won't be. So you're just leaving me here without money. You still have your own account. There's almost nothing in it. That's not my responsibility. His phone buzzed again. He checked the screen, silenced it, and looked back at me. A few minutes later, I drove away, leaving him standing beneath the porch light. I didn't cry until I reached the hotel. Sitting alone in the parking garage, I realized I wasn't grieving the man in that house. I was grieving the man I thought I'd married, the one who held my hand through my father's surgery, surprised me with coffee after late nights at work, and promised beneath white roses that he'd never been more certain of anything. I no longer knew which memories were real. That uncertainty hurt more than the affair itself. By midnight, Adrian had called 27 times. His messages swung wildly between apologies, accusations, and pleas for me to come home. The final text arrived at 1:14 a.m. Serena is just a friend. I read it twice. I'd never mentioned Serena. I took a screenshot, forwarded it to Rebecca, and received her reply almost immediately. Don't respond. This helps us. Rebecca called at 8:40 the next morning. The petition has been filed. Less than an hour later, Adrian was served. 5 minutes after that, my phone rang. I ignored it. His first voicemail was pure outrage. Fraud? Are you seriously accusing me of fraud? Call me. The second was even more revealing. You hired someone to investigate me. That's illegal. Serena and I never did anything before the wedding. Whatever you think you have is fake. I had never mentioned Serena. He had done that himself. The calls spread quickly through the Vale family. Victor, Margaret, Adrian's sister, and several relatives all tried to reach me. By noon, I had 53 missed calls. Rebecca immediately instructed them to communicate only through her office. They ignored her. Victor's first messages accused me of trying to steal the $200,000 gift. By the fourth, his tone had changed. We can settle this privately. Don't destroy Adrian's reputation. What he really meant was, keep this quiet. He wanted Adrian to keep access to the house while the family negotiated how much of my life he could still walk away with. I forwarded every voicemail to Rebecca without replying. 4 days later, Victor tracked me to my hotel after someone recognized my car and mentioned it to him. The next morning, he was already waiting in the lobby. Evelyn, you shouldn't be here. You need to end this. You need to speak to Rebecca. He ignored that. You've accused my son of fraud. Do you understand what that will do to him? I understand what he did to me. Victor stepped closer. This is about our money. It isn't. You want the house and our $200,000. I shook my head. The house will be sold. Your contribution will be returned. For the first time, he looked genuinely surprised. You'd give it back? Of course. After the mortgage and selling costs are paid, your money comes back first. His relief lasted only a second. After 10 months, there's almost no equity left, I continued. Adrian will receive very little. His face tightened. My son gave up his career for this marriage. He quit 4 months before the wedding. That wasn't my decision. He supported you. With what? He had no answer. Instead, he accused me of humiliating Adrian. I met his eyes. Your son promised Serena my house before we were even married. He planned to use my income to finance her studio. That's a misunderstanding. There are 40 pages of misunderstandings. His expression changed immediately. It wasn't the affair that frightened him. It was the possibility that everyone else would find out. You will not repeat those accusations publicly. If Adrian contests the petition, they'll become court exhibits. For several seconds, he said nothing. Finally, he lowered his voice. You have no idea what this family is capable of. It sounded less like a warning than a threat. I held his gaze. Have your attorney call Rebecca. I walked into the elevator without looking back. Just before the doors closed, Victor shouted after me. Adrian will fight you. He was right. Adrian's response arrived that afternoon, and it was even worse than I'd expected. He denied every allegation of fraud, then filed an emergency motion accusing me of financial abuse, abandoning the marital home, threatening him during violent outbursts, and leaving him afraid for his safety. He demanded exclusive possession of the house, restoration of his credit cards, temporary spousal support, payment of the mortgage, utilities, living expenses, and every dollar of his legal fees. According to his declaration, he was a devoted husband trapped with a cold, controlling wife. Serena wasn't mentioned once. Rebecca called while I was still reading. Don't panic. I've never threatened him. I know. What happens now? An emergency hearing next Tuesday. I looked at Adrian's signature beneath the declaration. He had lied throughout our marriage. Now he was willing to lie under oath. And if the judge believes him? Rebecca answered without hesitation. Then we make sure she sees everything he left out. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I barely slept the night before, not because I doubted the evidence, but because I'd never imagined standing in court while someone I once loved tried to convince a judge I was his abuser. Rebecca met me outside carrying 2 binders. One is his story, she said. The other is the truth. She handed me a bottle of water before we walked through security. The courtroom was smaller and quieter than I'd expected, filled with polished wood, fluorescent lights, and people waiting for strangers to decide their futures. Adrian was already there wearing the navy suit I'd bought him the year before. For a split second, he looked genuinely regretful, but the expression disappeared the moment he noticed Rebecca. His shoulders slumped, his hands folded, and he transformed into the image of a wounded husband. A few rows behind him sat Serena. Victor and Margaret were beside him, both avoiding my eyes. Rebecca leaned closer. Don't react, they're watching. Judge Eleanor Hayes entered, reviewed the file, and calmly announced, "We're here on an emergency request for temporary relief." Adrian's attorney, Charles Donovan, stood first. He portrayed Adrian as a supportive husband who had sacrificed his career for my demanding job, only to be abandoned without warning when I allegedly became jealous and controlling. According to him, I'd cut off Adrian's finances, monitored his spending, locked myself away after an argument, and was now trying to erase the marriage out of spite. Judge Hayes interrupted with a few direct questions. "Mr. Vale, are you employed?" "No, Your Honour." "When did you leave your job?" "Several months before the wedding." "Voluntarily?" "Yes." Before Adrian could say more, Charles quickly added that the decision had supposedly been mutual, while Adrian searched for more meaningful work. Rebecca quietly underlined something in her notes. There wasn't a single document supporting that claim. Charles finished by asking the court to restore Adrian's access to the house, his credit cards, temporary support, utilities, and attorney's fees. When he sat down, Judge Hayes turned to Rebecca. "Ms. Shaw." Rebecca rose calmly. "Your Honour, opposing counsel has described this as a marital dispute. It isn't." She placed the first binder on the lectern. "This marriage was fraudulent from the beginning." The courtroom noticeably quieted. "My client isn't trying to escape financial responsibility," she continued. "She's trying to unwind a marriage entered into under false pretenses." Charles objected, arguing she was addressing the annulment rather than the emergency motion. Rebecca didn't even look at him. "Mr. Vale is asking this court to believe he entered this marriage honestly. Our evidence says otherwise." Judge Hayes nodded. "I'll allow limited discussion." Rebecca handed the clerk the first exhibit, a licensed investigator's report documenting Mr. Vale's ongoing relationship with Serena Blake. Charles immediately objected. "Private surveillance proves nothing." "Agreed," Rebecca replied, lifting another binder. "That's why we have more." She introduced hotel invoices, vehicle records, restaurant receipts, and photographs. As Judge Hayes quietly reviewed the documents, the confidence on Adrian's side of the courtroom began to fade. Rebecca continued without hesitation. "These records establish that Mr. Vale resumed his relationship with Serena Blake before the wedding." Charles immediately objected. "There's no proof the relationship was romantic." Rebecca gave a faint smile. "That brings us to Exhibit 3. She opened a thicker binder. "Recovered communications." She explained that the messages had been preserved through a shared account already accessible from my home computer and would be formally authenticated before trial. The reaction was immediate. Adrian went rigid. Victor looked toward his attorney. For the first time, Serena looked at me. Rebecca selected a page. This message was sent 7 days before the wedding. "Adrian, just get through the ceremony. Evelyn trusts me completely." She turned another page. "Serena, how long before we leave?" "Adrian, 6 months, maybe a year. Then I'll tell her the marriage isn't working." The courtroom fell silent. Rebecca continued. "Adrian, she's financially stable. She'll never see it coming." Then she read the final message. "Adrian, the house will pay for your photography studio. We'll finally have the life we deserve." Charles stood immediately. "We dispute both the authenticity and admissibility of these messages. You may challenge them at trial," Rebecca replied calmly. "But today your client is asking this court to force Mrs. Carter to support him while concealing evidence that he planned to leave her before the wedding." Judge Hayes removed her glasses and looked directly at Adrian. "When did your relationship with Ms. Blake resume?" "We stayed friends." "That wasn't my question. We talked occasionally. Before or after your wedding?" Adrian hesitated. Charles stepped in. "My client respectfully declines to answer questions related to the pending annulment." Judge Hayes nodded, then glanced back at the exhibits. "This message discusses using Mrs. Carter's income to purchase a photography studio." Charles objected again. Overruled. The judge turned toward Serena. "Ms. Blake, you aren't required to answer, but are you currently in a romantic relationship with Mr. Vale?" Serena looked at Adrian. He wouldn't meet her eyes. After several long seconds, she answered quietly. "Yes." The single word changed the room. Victor closed his eyes. Margaret inhaled sharply. Adrian looked stunned. Judge Hayes made a note, then asked one final question. Were you involved with Mr. Vale before his marriage? No one answered, and the pause stretched long enough for everyone in the courtroom to understand the truth. Rebecca said nothing because she didn't have to. Judge Hayes folded her hands. Mr. Donovan, your client is asking this court to require Mrs. Carter to continue financing him, while substantial evidence suggests he entered this marriage intending to deceive her. Those allegations remain disputed, Charles argued. They do, the judge replied. But emergency relief depends on credibility, and I have serious concerns about your client's credibility. Adrian's shoulders visibly dropped. Judge Hayes began reading her ruling. The request for temporary spousal support is denied. The request to restore financial accounts is denied. The request for attorney's fees is denied. The request for exclusive possession of the residence is also denied, pending final resolution. Charles started to object. Your Honours, I'm not finished. The courtroom went silent. Judge Hayes fixed her attention on Adrian. If these exhibits are authenticated at trial, this case involves far more than a failed marriage. You are asking this court to require another adult to finance what appears to have been a carefully planned deception. For several long seconds, no one spoke. Then Judge Hayes turned to Rebecca. Counsel. Yes, Your Honour. I strongly encourage both parties to discuss settlement. She looked back at Adrian. If today's evidence represents only a portion of what will be presented at trial, the outcome may become substantially more expensive for your client. The hearing ended minutes later. As everyone filed toward the exits, I remained in my seat, suddenly aware that my legs were trembling. Rebecca rested a hand on my shoulder. You did well. I didn't say anything. You didn't need to. Across the courtroom, Adrian finally looked at Serena. Neither of them smiled. After a long pause, she quietly picked up her purse, walked past Adrian, Victor, and Margaret without a word, and left the courtroom alone. By noon, Rebecca had already received the first settlement inquiry from Adrian's attorney. I'm surprised it took this long, she said as we sat in her office. I looked out the window toward the courthouse. Do you think he'll settle? I think his lawyer wants him to. And Adrian? Rebecca gave a faint smile. People like Adrian don't settle because they grow a conscience. They settle when reality becomes expensive. She slid a yellow legal pad across the desk. Option A, continue with the annulment, proceed to trial, present all the evidence, and seek reimbursement of legal fees based on fraudulent inducement and bad faith litigation. Option B, negotiate an uncontested divorce with nearly identical financial consequences. I thought you preferred the annulment. I still do, she replied. But the best legal victory isn't always the longest one. We can likely prove fraud, but another year of litigation could cost both sides a fortune and end with almost the same result. She pushed the proposal toward me. If Adrian accepts these terms, you leave with virtually everything an annulment would provide, without spending another year in court. And if he refuses? Rebecca closed the file. Then we introduce every message. That afternoon, she called Adrian's attorney on speaker. Charles, my client is prepared to resolve this. I'm listening, he replied wearily. There are two options. Rebecca explained them one by one. If Adrian continued fighting the annulment, every text message, hotel receipt, investigator's report, financial record, and witness statement would be introduced at trial. His false abuse allegations would also become part of the case, and we would seek reimbursement for my legal fees. Silence filled the line. Finally, Charles asked, and the second option? A negotiated divorce. Rebecca outlined the settlement. No spousal support, no future claims against my income, immediate sale of the house through a neutral broker, full repayment of Victor and Margaret's $200,000 contribution from the sale proceeds, equal division of any remaining equity, return of wedding gifts whenever possible, and reimbursement or deduction of any cash gifts Adrian still controlled. Each party would pay their own attorney. After a long silence, Charles finally said, I'll discuss it with my client. I suggest you also discuss the alternatives, Rebecca replied. When the call ended, she tapped the evidence binder. He'll recommend settlement. You sound certain. Because lawyers calculate risk, and this file is risk. 2 days later, Charles called again, asking for more time. Rebecca refused. Time won't improve the evidence. It'll only increase legal fees. After another pause, he admitted the Vale family wanted Serena involved in the negotiations. Rebecca actually laughed. Charles, this is a divorce negotiation, not couples counseling. When she hung up, she shook her head. They're still pretending reality hasn't arrived. Reality caught up with them that Saturday. 3 days later, Olivia Harper, a longtime family friend, called to tell me about a meeting at Victor's house. Margaret had invited her because Adrian refused to listen to anyone else, so she witnessed everything. Victor spread Rebecca's settlement proposal across the dining table and told Adrian there were no better options. Margaret quietly asked whether the terms could be reduced, but Victor pointed out that I was returning the family's entire $200,000 contribution while asking only to keep what I'd earned myself. Then he turned to Serena. The house will be sold. There's no spousal support, no credit cards, no monthly income. He looked directly at her. So when does Adrian move in with you? Serena hesitated. She admitted she lived in a one-bedroom apartment, couldn't add another tenant, and her photography business wasn't stable enough to support them. Victor finished the thought for her. You thought there would be money. The room fell silent. Adrian slowly realized Serena had expected him to receive part of the house, support payments, and financial security. Serena realized Adrian had expected her business to support them. Neither assumption was true. Victor quietly asked the only question that mattered. So who was planning to support whom? No one answered. They had both been counting on money that was never theirs. Me? The meeting quickly fell apart. Adrian insisted they could still make it work, but Serena stopped him at the door. This isn't what we talked about. Victor later said that was the moment Adrian finally understood the truth. Serena hadn't planned to struggle beside him. She'd planned to enjoy the life he'd promised her. 3 days later, she disappeared. She stopped answering Adrian's calls, ignored his visits to her apartment and studio, then finally sent one message. I need space. Please don't contact me. When he kept calling, she blocked him. A final text from another number followed. This is too much drama. I need to focus on my life. Please respect my decision. That was the end. She walked away the moment she realized there would be no house, no settlement, and no comfortable future. Ironically, she left Adrian exactly the way he'd intended to leave me. The following morning, Adrian's attorney returned the settlement agreement. My signature was already there. Only his was missing. He'll wait until the last minute, Rebecca said. Why? He still thinks someone will rescue him. A moment later, my phone rang. Unknown number. It was Adrian. He sounded exhausted as he took a shaky breath. Please don't hang up. I remained silent. Serena's gone. I know. She blocked me. His voice broke. I thought she loved me. I'm sorry you're hurting, I said. But you deserve honesty. He quietly cried. I thought she wanted me. You thought she wanted the life you promised her. I made the biggest mistake of my life. So did I. I don't want this divorce. Neither did I. I love you. The words meant nothing anymore. All I could hear was another sentence. She's financially stable. She'll never see it coming. I've read your messages, Adrian. The silence that followed confirmed everything. You knew? I've known for weeks. I wasn't going to leave you. You literally wrote that you would. I was angry. The messages lasted for months. Every answer became smaller until all he could say was, I know. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I know exactly what you expected, I replied. You expected me to keep paying the mortgage, support you while you ended the marriage, collect a settlement, and have Serena waiting. After a long silence, he whispered, Oh, yes. At least we're finally being honest. I've lost everything. No, you lost the fantasy. I lost my marriage. He tried bargaining. I'll get another job. I'll go to counseling. I'll sign anything. Why now? Because I understand. No, you understand because Serena left. If she were still beside you, you wouldn't be calling me. He couldn't deny it. I'm sorry. I believe you. Hope returned to his voice. Then maybe, but remorse isn't the same as trust. It disappeared again. I can't unknow what you planned. You're right. I can't forget what you told her. He lowered his head. I know. I can't build another marriage on top of this one. He whispered, Please, take me back. No, we can start over. No, I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. You can't. I'll have nothing. You'll have exactly what you chose. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered one sentence. Just get through the ceremony. Every trace of sympathy vanished. The settlement agreement is waiting for your signature. You have 24 hours. If you don't sign, we'll proceed with the annulment. You'll destroy me. I ended the conversation with the only truth left to say. No, you started destroying yourself long before you met me. He signed 23 hours later, not because he accepted responsibility, but because every remaining option was worse. Within days, the house was listed, sold, and the mortgage paid. Victor and Margaret received their entire $200,000 contribution back before anyone else received a dollar. After closing costs, Adrian and I each walked away with only a little over $10,000. 10 months of deception, $10,000. A few days later, Victor left one final voicemail. The check arrived. I was wrong. There was no excuse or request, only acceptance. According to Olivia, Serena soon began posting online about choosing peace and leaving unhealthy situations, carefully avoiding any mention of Adrian, the affair, or our marriage. Serena had already rewritten the story, just as Adrian had tried to rewrite ours. Adrian wasn't the kind of man who admitted what he'd done. Changing the story was easier than living with the truth. About a month after the house sold, Rebecca invited me to lunch. There were no files, deadlines, or court hearings. Just two people finally talking about something other than litigation. You know what surprised me most? She asked. What? You never asked whether Adrian regretted it. I thought for a moment. I don't think it matters. Why? Because a regret isn't proof someone loved you. Rebecca gave a faint smile. I think he regrets losing the future he imagined, not losing me. I think those are different things. I do too. Soon afterward, I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment across town. It wasn't impressive, but it was quiet. There were no hidden phones, unexplained charges, or constant doubts about whether every smile concealed another lie. The silence felt peaceful. A few weeks later, Daniel, the investigator, asked if I wanted the remaining surveillance files. There are still photos you haven't seen. I shook my head. I already know enough. He smiled, fed the remaining documents into a shredder, and watched them disappear. So did I. The evidence had served its purpose. I didn't need to carry it forever. Almost 2 months later, Olivia sent me a photo of Adrian sitting alone in a neighborhood coffee shop. An employment application rested on the table in front of him. His expensive clothes were gone, replaced by an ordinary polo shirt. Beneath the picture, she wrote, "He looks different." She was right. Not older. Just like someone finally living with consequences instead of expectations. I never replied. There was nothing left to say. Every now and then, someone asked whether I regret filing for the annulment or wonder if counselling could have saved us. I always answer the same way. What exactly would we have been saving? The marriage had already ended long before I discovered the truth. Adrian had admitted that himself. He just never expected me to read it. Even the $2,500 Willow Creek charge eventually made sense. It wasn't a spa visit. It was a weekend in a private villa with champagne, dinner, couples massages, and a celebration. They weren't simply having an affair. They were celebrating the future they believed my work would finance. Ironically, that single charge became the thread that unraveled everything. I still don't think I won. I lost a marriage, a home, time, money, and the ability to trust every beautiful memory without questioning it. But I gained something far more valuable. A life built on truth. Every evening when I unlock my apartment door, I'm greeted by something I didn't have before. Peace. No one is pretending to love me for what I can provide. There are no hidden plans waiting beneath the surface, and no future built on my paycheck instead of genuine love. For the first time in a very long time, the life waiting behind that door belongs entirely to me. And after everything that happened, that's worth far more than any house, wedding gift, or amount of money Adrian ever believed he could take from me.